Hello there everyone and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today we are going to be making a fun shaker card using the fabulous new products from the April release. So first up, I have the very cute Mini Delight. So this is the Light My World, and I'm just actually going to be using the die set from this one. So with our Mini Delights now, you can actually use them together or you can use them separately, which kind of stretches their use. So I'm going to be using the outer shape from the die set, and I'm going to be using a piece of cotton paper. So this is what's used normally for letterpress, and I am going to be letterpressing this later on. So I'm going to use some letterpress paper to make sure that everything's going to work perfectly. Once I have my image in place where I want it to be on my kind of panel, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some of the satin masking tape to keep that in place. It means when I run it through my die cutting machine, it's not going to move around and it's going to stay in the exact place that I want it to be. So as you can see, I'm just going to remove the inside piece and we're going to work on the outside. I'm then going to be using the Baroque Elegance press plate, and this is beautiful. So this is going to cover the front of an A2 card base perfectly, but you could also use this for just like borders if you wanted to do strips or even use die cut shapes. I'm just going to pop that into place onto my Better Press system, and I'm just going to add it into the kind of guidelines for the A2 card. And then I'm just going to adhere my panel that we've just cut with the die into place on the kind of base or the other see-through plate for the Better Press. Now that is going to kind of just add the embossed texture in there. If you wanted to add some ink onto that, you could do as well, but I just wanted the embossed texture on that background. It's very classy and it looks very, very pretty. So as you can see, I have that there, and I'm then going to add this onto my sticky mat, add in the die cut that we've cut out from the center, and we are gonna in fact do a little bit of ink blending onto both pieces at the same time. So they're stuck on my sticky mat, so I had no need for the tape, and I am gonna add a kind of glow to this bulb. So I am going to be using the chamomile ink, and I'm using one of the small blending tools. You could use a smaller one if you wanted to. You could use a larger one. Use whatever blending tools you have and you find work for you. My favorite are the small ones. I feel that they add down the kind of perfect amount of ink for me. But if I was going to use them on a smaller project, I would go for like the mini or even the detailed ones. There's lots of different choices with our blending tools. As you can see, I'm adding quite a lot of that ink, but I'm trying to add more of the ink to where the kind of filament would be in the bulb, and then blending that out a little. So once I'm happy with the amount of ink I have with the chamomile, and then I'm going to take the sunray and then blend that out a little bit more. I do want to kind of blend this yellow color into a blue, but I don't want to get a green color. So to do that, I'm going to try and not blend them too much together. And having the lighter shades means that even if I do get kind of a greeny tinge, it hopefully won't be that as noticeable. So I am going around the outside edge of the chamomile ink with that sunray. And then when I'm happy, I can just add the lids on, and I'm then going to grab some of my blues. Now I am going some really dark shades on here. So I have the dusk, and I am going to use this to kind of fill in the rest of the background. Now this may take a little bit more of time because I am using that small blending tool. But if you have a larger one, that could kind of quicken up this process. It's completely up to you. I do love a little bit of ink blending, so I'm not really upset that this is taking me a little bit longer. But I would suggest that when you are doing this is not get discouraged about the kind of color that you're getting down first. As you can see, my first layer of ink there was not great. The coverage wasn't good. That could be to do with the kind of paper that we're using. Obviously, we're using that cotton paper for letterpress, so this may take ink a little bit differently, so always keep that in mind. And also the first lot of ink that you put down kind of grabs into the paper and then creates a kind of gliding finish. So the more layers of ink that you put down, the easier it will be to blend. So if you wanted to kind of add a really light color all the way over first and then build up to the darker shades, that works as well. But as you can see, the more kind of layers of ink that we're adding down there means the smoother that ink will look. We are also getting the look of the beautiful embossing that we've added in there, that letterpress look. So there are going to be points on this which is going to look darker, and I'm happy with that because I want more of that ink to settle into some of those spaces so you can see that beautiful textured effect. So once I was happy with the dusk, I'm then going to go in with the desert night and add that in a kind of larger radial circle away from that filament that we did with the chamomile ink. I then wanted a little bit darker, so I did try to add in the dark, which one was it? Sorry, the dark night, but I didn't feel that this worked that well on top of the desert night, so I moved this one out the way and I went into the tanzanite, and then I felt like I was getting more of a kind of contrast there. So I'm just going to add the tanzanite to add that darker look around the outside edge, so it really looks like that bulb is glowing and really adding light, and then the rest of the image is dark where it's not touching. I then wanted a more light effect, and I thought we could go in with the Cloud White pigment ink. So again, I'm using a small blending tool here, and this is working perfectly. So instead of getting that kind of grungy green color that I would get if I mix that yellow with the blue, I then decided to add this around the outside of that yellow color, and this worked perfectly. So this is just the Cloud White ink, and I am loving the effect this gives, and it just kind of sits on top of that blue ink rather than mixing with it, because they are two different types of ink. The pigment ink sits on the surface, and then the dye ink itself dyes the cardstock. So this one is sitting on the top of that, and I did bring that in to the yellow as well, and I just love how this turned out. So once that's done, I can then remove that off my sticky mat, and I have my two pieces ready to go. I then wanted to add a little bit of metal look to the top of the bulb. So I have the fabulous brushed silver cardstock from Altenew, and I'm just taking the top part of the die from the You Light Up My World Mini Delight, and I'm just going to run that through my mini blossom to cut that. Now this does have embossed lines on, so you are going to get those lines as well as the die cut image. I then wanted to kind of make a string, so this wasn't just floating in mid-air. It did look as though it was coming from the ceiling, so I'm just using the brush marker from the fine line pens from Altenew, and I'm just adding the lines up to the top of the card, and then just colouring in that centerpiece. If you don't have this marker, you could use whichever fine line pens that you have. You could also use the Jet Black Artist marker. I'm sure you have something in your stash where you could draw a black line and then colour in the little space in between. So there we go, that's that done. I'm then going to use a piece of acetate. Now this is what's going to create that kind of shaker element window. So I have a piece of acetate here, and what I'm doing is I'm just lining that up with the die cut that I have, so I don't kind of cut too much. I'm always a little bit more sparing with my acetate because I want this to kind of last longer than cardstock. I mean, it's a little bit more expensive, so I do try to treat it a little bit differently. I'm then going to take the ultra sticky tape from Altenew, and I'm popping that around the outside of the die cut that we have on the panel, but I'm doing that on the back side, so you're not going to be able to see any of this adhesive. Once that's done, I then want to pop my little other piece in place on my card base. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to line the panel up onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base, add some of the ultra sticky tape behind the little die cut bulb that we have, and then we can remove the backing pieces. This is very sticky tape, so I find that this works really well for this kind of construction, especially with the shaker card. So I'm just going to remove that, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that through the die cut that we have, the die cut space that we have on the panel, and that's going to be perfectly in place onto my card base. Once that's done, we can then remove the backing off the tape that we've added around the die cut shape. So I'm just going to remove all of those pieces. Now these pieces themselves are even really pretty. I love the backing that we get on the adhesive sheets from Altenew. They have really thought about the design as well as this, rather than just adding on like a clear, like a grey tape. So I am going to pop the acetate onto that, and that's going to stick nice and firmly on there. And you can see that you are going to be able to see that shape behind there. Now I'm going to add a little wall around the die cut that we have on the card base. Now, I find it easier to cut my instant dimension foam tape into strips and then use this to go around the image. If you wanted to, you could use some small squares and go around. What you need to do though with this is you need to make sure that all of these adhesive foam pieces touch each other. You don't want any gaps in this whatsoever, because if you do, that means that some of your little shaker shapes may be able to escape, and that's not what we want. I'm then going to add more of the same tape, so the same thickness of tape, onto the rest of that card base. So this is going to act as the kind of leveling agent to the rest of the card base. Once that's done, we can remove all of these little pieces that we have before we add in the shaker elements. Remember to add in the shaker elements at this point, otherwise you will have a window with no shakies. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some of the fabulous gold sequins into that. Make sure that none of them are sticking onto the foam tape, as that means that you won't get, that you'll get a little lump in there and it won't seal properly. Also, don't add in too many shapes. I think I have added in a little bit too many. My shaker is not as shaky as I would like it to be. So just take heed. Make sure all of your shaker elements are nice and flat before you pop on at the top. I'm then going to add in the little silver piece that we have and just add that to the top of the little the acetate that we have. I'm then going to take some of the fabulous more press plates. This one is the Celebration Sentiments, and I'm just going to add this onto my glimmer machine. So for all of the press plates that we have, they will work perfectly with foiling as well. So they're kind of a double duty supply. So you're going to be able to use your press plates with foiling as well. So it's really, really cool. Try out all of the other press plates that you have. You can use it on backgrounds. You can use it on sentiments like this. And with the sentiments on the press plate form, you can get greater detail. So you can see those little tiny words that we have on this Celebration Sentiments dice press plate, sorry. Those little tiny words will foil perfectly. It is amazing. So I have let this all come up to temperature. I've added on my foil. This is the Mirror Gold from Altenew, and I'm just going to run that through my machine onto some white cardstock. So when I remove this now, I actually got really scared at this point because I was like, are those little words going to foil perfectly? And you know what? They did. First go, and just look how pretty that is there. Those tiny little words, they look so good. So once that had been done, I'm then going to take the coordinating die set and I'm just going to cut out all of those sentiments. So I'm only actually going to use one of these sentiments on my card. So that means the rest of them, I have some beautiful foiled sentiments ready to go for future projects. So once I chose which sentiment to use, I'm just going to pop a tiny bit of the Instant Dimension foam tape right on the back, and I'm just going to pop that in place. I love the fact that this goes over that little bulb as well, so it kind of draws everything in together. All the gold and shininess makes my heart very, very happy. So I really do hope that you like the card and that you've enjoyed the video as well. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it would be great if you do share. If you don't want to miss out on anything, please make sure you subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.